The great doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened slowly. The sound echoed through the massive hall like thunder rolling across mountains. Every species in the room turned to look. They had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The humans had finally arrived. Ambassador Park walked through the doorway first. She was a woman of average height with black hair tied neatly behind her head. Her face showed no emotion. She wore a simple dark blue uniform with a small Earth symbol on her chest. Behind her walked 4 guards in plain black clothes. The chamber was enormous. It could hold thousands of beings from across the galaxy. Today, representatives from over 200 species filled the seats. They had come to see the members of the Galactic Council. They had come to see the humans. High Counselor sat at the center of the elevated platform. He was a creature from the collective. His body was covered in hard brown plates, and his 4 arms rested on the arms of his chair. His compound eyes watched the human delegation with cold interest. "They are smaller than I expected," said Ambassador from his seat nearby. He was a species that looked like a mass of purple tentacles with a central body. His sensory organs extended outward, tasting the air for information. And their guards carry nothing. The delegate leaned closer. His body was made of living crystal that shifted colors when he moved. Right now, the colors were dark blue and gray, showing his confusion. "Surely that cannot be correct. Look again." Looked again. The 4 human guards stood behind their ambassador. Their hands were empty. Their belts held no weapons. They wore no armor. They simply stood there calm and quiet like statues made of flesh. "This is very strange," said. "Every species brings armed guards to council meetings. It is tradition. It is expected. They bring their neural disruptors. We bring our crystal blades. Even the peaceful carry ceremonial shock staffs." "Perhaps humans are foolish," suggested. "Or perhaps they are arrogant. They have only been in space for 300 years. Maybe they do not understand how things work here." Ambassador Park reached the center of the chamber and stopped. She bowed slightly to the High Counselor. "Greetings, honored members of the Galactic Council. I am Park, representing the United Human Federation. We are grateful for this opportunity to join your assembly." Her voice was clear and steady. She spoke Galactic Common with a slight accent, but her words were perfect. High Counselor raised one of his 4 arms in greeting. "Welcome, Ambassador Park. Humanity's application for council membership has been reviewed. We have many questions." "I will answer what I can," replied. His compound eyes shifted to the guards behind her. "Let us begin with an obvious question. Your security personnel appear to be unarmed. Is this an oversight, or do humans not understand the dangers present in galactic politics?" A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the chamber. Several delegates shook their heads or made gestures of amusement. The ambassador, a tall reptilian creature named, openly showed his teeth in a mocking smile. Did not react to the laughter. "We understand the dangers very well, High Counselor. Captain and his team are more than capable of protecting me." She gestured to the lead guard. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a calm face. His black hair was cut short, and his eyes were dark and watchful. He had small scars on his knuckles. He stood with perfect stillness, like a mountain that had learned to breathe. "Captain has served in the Human Defense Forces for 15 years, continued. "He and his team were chosen specifically for this mission." Laughed loudly. "Chosen for what? To die when the first assassin appears. Ambassador, this is the Galactic Council. Enemies are everywhere. Without weapons, your guards are nothing but decoration." "With respect," Ambassador said, "I disagree." The laughter continued, but some delegates noticed something strange. The human guards had not reacted at all. They did not look embarrassed or angry. They did not shift their weight or clench their fists. They simply stood there, watching everything with quiet eyes. Lieutenant was a woman of medium height with sharp features and quick eyes. She stood to his left, her gaze moving across the chamber with the patience of a hunter. Sergeant Han Minyu was shorter but heavily muscled. His face was friendly, but his posture spoke of hidden strength. Corporal Sara was the youngest, a slim woman with gentle features that seemed out of place among soldiers. None of them looked worried, none of them looked afraid. High Counselor studied them for a long moment. Something about their stillness bothered him, though he could not say why. "Very well, Ambassador. We will proceed with the formal session, but I must warn you that your choice of security may be seen as weakness by other species." "Noted," said simply. The session began. For hours, the delegates questioned humanity about their history, their technology, their intentions. Ambassador Park answered each question with patience and skill. She was smart and careful with her words. But throughout the long meeting, the other species kept watching the human guards. They could not understand what they were seeing. Every other guard in the chamber was armed with the best weapons their species could make. The guards held neural disruptors that could shut down a brain in seconds. The guards carried acid sprayers that could dissolve metal. The guards wore crystal blades that could cut through almost anything. The human guards held nothing. They wore nothing special. They were just 4 people in black clothes. During a break in the session, Ambassador approached Ambassador Park. His tentacles moved in patterns that showed his curiosity. "I must ask, Ambassador, is this some kind of political statement? Are you trying to show that humans do not fear the Council?" Smiled politely. "Not at all, Ambassador. We have great respect for the Council." "Then why?" pressed. "Why bring unarmed guards to the most important meeting in your species' history? It makes no sense." Glanced at Captain. Something passed between them, a look that lasted less than a second. Then she turned back to, "Our guards are not unarmed, Ambassador. They simply do not carry weapons." His tentacles twisted in confusion. "That is the same thing." "No," said softly, "it is not." Before could ask more questions, the session resumed. He returned to his seat, still confused. He told what the human ambassador had said. "Unarmed but not without weapons," repeated. His crystal body flickered with colors of deep confusion. "What does that mean?" "I do not know," admitted. "Humans are strange creatures." The meeting continued for 3 more days. The human delegation answered hundreds of questions. They signed dozens of agreements. They made promises of peace and cooperation. And through it all, their 4 guards stood silent and still, watching everything, holding nothing. On the final day, humanity was officially accepted into the Galactic Council. There was polite applause. Ambassador Park bowed with grace and dignity. As the human delegation prepared to leave, High Counselor called out one last time. "Ambassador Park, a word of advice. The galaxy is dangerous. Whatever game you are playing with your unarmed guards, I suggest you reconsider before someone decides to test your defenses." Paused at the door. She looked back at the High Counselor with an expression he could not read. "Thank you for your concern, High Counselor," she said. "But I assure you we are ready for any test." Then she walked out, her 4 silent guards following behind her. Watched them go. Something about the way she had spoken bothered him. There was no fear in her voice, no worry at all, just calm confidence that seemed completely disconnected from reality. "Strange creatures," he muttered to himself, "very strange." He had no idea how right he was. And he had no idea that soon, very soon, he would understand exactly why human diplomatic guards carried no weapons. The answer would change the way the galaxy looked at humanity forever. 3 standard weeks had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. The jokes had not stopped. Every time Ambassador Park entered the chamber, someone made a comment about her unarmed guards. They were the worst. Ambassador seemed to find endless amusement in mocking the humans. "Tell me, Ambassador Park," said during one session, his reptilian mouth curved in a cruel smile. "Have your guards considered carrying sticks, Even sticks would be better than nothing. The delegates laughed. Some other species joined them. The sound filled the chamber like ugly music. Captain stood behind Ambassador Park, his face showing nothing. His team remained equally still. They had heard these jokes many times now. They never responded. They never showed anger or embarrassment. They simply watched and waited. Ambassador Park smiled politely at, "Thank you for your concern, Ambassador, but my guards prefer their current arrangement." "Current arrangement," repeated with a harsh laugh. "You mean standing there like helpless prey? Ambassador, I have seen your species' history. You spent most of your existence killing each other with primitive weapons. Surely you must understand the importance of being armed." "We understand many things," replied calmly, "perhaps more than you realize." The session that day focused on trade negotiations. The wanted access to human agricultural technology. Humans had developed methods to grow food in almost any environment, and many species were interested in this knowledge. The discussions were long and complicated. During the afternoon break, the delegates scattered throughout the chamber. Some talked in small groups. Others reviewed documents on their data screens. The guards from various species stood at their posts, weapons ready as always. High Counselor sat at his elevated platform, speaking quietly with his advisors. He was discussing the next agenda item when movement caught his compound eyes. A side door had opened. A figure emerged from the shadows. The figure was an species with 4 arms and a hard green shell covering its body. But this was not dressed like a diplomat. It wore dark armor and carried an acid sprayer, the deadliest weapon the produced. The acid could melt through metal, stone, and flesh in seconds. The raised the weapon. It was pointed directly at High Counselor. Everything happened at once. The guards shouted warnings and reached for their neural disruptors. The guards scrambled to activate their acid shields. The guards drew their crystal blades with movements that seemed painfully slow. Own guards moved to protect him, but they were too far away. The assassin was already squeezing the trigger. Then a black blur crossed the chamber. Captain moved faster than anyone had ever seen a being move before. One moment he was standing behind Ambassador Park. The next moment he was 8 meters away, right beside the assassin. His hand closed around this weapon arm before the creature could fully depress the trigger. There was a sound like breaking wood. It was the assassin's arm, twisted at an angle that nature never intended. The acid sprayer fell from the limp limb and caught it with his other hand. In the same smooth motion, he spun the weapon around and pulled it apart. The components scattered across the floor in pieces. They tried to scream, but Lieutenant was already there. She appeared beside like a ghost, her hand striking a precise point at the base of the assassin's skull. The creature's eyes went blank. It collapsed to the floor, unconscious before it hit the ground. Sergeant Han Minyu and Corporal Sora had moved too. They now stood in a protective circle around Ambassador Park, their bodies positioned as living shields. Their eyes scanned the room for other threats. They found none. The entire event lasted 4.2 seconds. Silence filled the chamber. Every being in the room had frozen in place. The guards still had their weapons half drawn. The guards still had their shields half activated. None of them had completed a single action before the humans had ended the threat. High Counselor stared at the scene before him. His compound eyes tried to process what he had just witnessed. The assassin lay crumpled on the floor, stood over the body, calm and still, as if he had merely walked across the room to pick up a dropped item. Was already stepping back, resuming her position near the ambassador. "What?" His voice came out as a whisper. He tried again. "What just happened?" Ambassador Park stepped forward, gently moving past her protective guards. "Captain neutralized the threat, High Counselor. Are you injured?" No, I am not injured." The mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. But how? The distance, the speed. Finally found his voice. The mockery was gone, replaced by something close to fear. That is not possible. No species can move that fast. I have studied human biology. You are soft creatures with weak bones and slow reflexes. What I just saw cannot be real. Looked at the ambassador with eyes that showed no emotion. Your studies were incomplete, ambassador. Incomplete. Scales shifted color as his stress levels rose. I read every file. Humans are average in strength, average in speed, average in every physical measure. You should not be able to do what you just did. And yet, said quietly, he did. The chamber slowly came back to life. Guards rushed to secure the unconscious assassin. Medical teams arrived to check on the High Counselor. Officials began asking questions about security failures. Through all of this, the human guards returned to their positions behind Ambassador Park, as calm as if nothing unusual had occurred. The ambassador approached with his tentacles trembling. Ambassador Park, I must know, how did your captain move so quickly? How did he take apart that weapon while simultaneously breaking the assassin's arm? These actions should not be possible for an unarmed being. Looked at with a patient expression. Ambassador, I told you before, my guards are not unarmed. They simply do not carry weapons. But that makes no sense, protested. A weapon is a tool you carry. If they carry no tools, they have no weapons. That is where you are wrong, said softly. Humans have always understood a simple truth that most species forget. The greatest weapon any being possesses is the being itself. Everything else is just a supplement. She gestured to Captain. My guards have trained their bodies since childhood. They have studied combat arts that were developed over thousands of years. They do not need external weapons because they are weapons. Every bone, every muscle, every nerve in their bodies has been shaped and strengthened for one purpose: to end threats with maximum efficiency. Tentacles went still. Thousands of years. You have been developing combat techniques for thousands of years. Humans have a violent history, admitted. We spent most of our existence fighting each other. It was terrible in many ways, but it also taught us things. It taught us how to survive. It taught us how to fight without tools when tools were not available. It taught us how to turn our weakness into strength. She paused, looking around the chamber at the shocked faces of the other delegates. Other species developed weapons to protect themselves. Humans did too, but we also developed something else. We developed the ability to fight with nothing but our hands, our feet, our elbows, our knees. We learned to use every part of our bodies as tools of defense and attack, and over thousands of years we perfected these techniques into arts. Arts? Asked, his crystal body flickering with confusion. You speak of combat as art. Yes, said, martial arts, fighting arts, the art of war using nothing but the self. Every human culture developed their own version, and the best of these arts have been refined and combined over centuries until they became something remarkable. She looked at her guards with obvious pride. Captain and his team represent the peak of these arts. They have trained since they were children. They have mastered techniques that allow them to move faster than most species can track. They have strengthened their bodies until their bones are denser than natural. They have practiced until their reflexes operate without conscious thought. The chamber was completely silent now. Every species was listening. When you carry a weapon, continued, you become dependent on it. If it is taken, you are helpless. If it fails, you are vulnerable. My guards carry no weapons because weapons would only slow them down. They do not need to draw a gun or activate a blade. Their bodies are always ready, always armed, always dangerous. High Counselor finally spoke. His voice was careful, as if he was seeing humans for the first time. Ambassador Park, that assassin would have killed me. Your captain saved my life. Yes, agreed simply. The other guards in this chamber are among the best in the galaxy. None of them could react in time. Only your captain could. Compound eyes focused on with new respect. I mocked your security choices. I believed you were foolish or arrogant. I was wrong. Bowed slightly. No offense was taken, High Counselor. Looked at the unconscious assassin being carried away. Then he looked at the broken pieces of the acid sprayer scattered on the floor. Then he looked at Captain, who stood as still and calm as a stone. I think, said slowly, that the galaxy has badly underestimated humanity. Ambassador Park smiled, and for the first time the other delegates noticed something in that smile, something old, something patient, something that had been waiting for this moment. Yes, she said, most species do. The news of the assassination attempt spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every major species knew what had happened. Within days, the story had grown. Some versions claimed that Captain had killed the assassin with a single touch. Others said he had moved so fast that he left afterimages in the air. The truth was impressive enough, but rumors made it legendary. The Galactic Council called a formal inquiry. They wanted answers. They wanted to understand what they had witnessed. And more than anything, they wanted to know if humans were a threat. Ambassador Park stood in the center of the inquiry chamber. Unlike the main council hall, this room was smaller and more focused. Only the senior delegates from the most powerful species were present. High Counselor sat at the head of the table, his compound eyes never leaving the human delegation. Ambassador Park began, this inquiry has been called to better understand human capabilities. What we witnessed during the assassination attempt has caused significant concern among council members. Concerned High Counselor asked calmly. Fear would be more accurate, Ambassador said bluntly. The had lost much of his earlier arrogance. He now looked at the human guards with the careful eyes of a prey animal watching a predator. Your captain moved faster than any species in our records. He disabled an armed assassin in seconds. He showed no hesitation, no fear, no effort. This is deeply troubling. I understand your concern, replied, but I assure you that humanity means no harm to any species in this council. That may be true, said, his tentacles moving slowly. But intention and capability are different things. We now know that humans are capable of extreme violence. We need to understand the extent of this capability. Nodded, very well. Captain, please explain to the council what you and your team represent. Stepped forward. His movements were smooth and controlled. Every step seemed deliberate, every gesture efficient. He stopped at a position where everyone could see him clearly. Honored delegates, he began, his voice calm and steady. I understand your concerns. What you witnessed was surprising to you, but to humans it was simply training doing what training is meant to do. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Humans evolved on a planet that tried very hard to kill us. Earth is what your scientists would call a death world. The gravity is heavy. The climate is extreme. The wildlife is dangerous. Disease is everywhere. Our ancestors survived not because they were the strongest or fastest creatures on our planet. They were not. Many animals could outrun us or overpower us easily. The delegates listened with intense focus. Humans survived because we adapted. We learned. We developed tools, yes, but we also developed ourselves. When tools were not available, we learned to use our bodies. When our bodies were not strong enough, we learned techniques to multiply our strength. When our reflexes were not fast enough, we trained until they became faster. Raised his hands, showing them to the council. They were ordinary hands, but not unusual. These hands have been trained since I was 6 years old. I learned to strike with them in ways that cause maximum damage with minimum effort. I learned to grab with them in ways that control an opponent completely. I learned to block with them in ways that protect against any attack. He lowered his hands. My feet have been trained the same way. My elbows, my knees, my head. Every part of my body is a weapon that I can use in hundreds of different ways. And I am not special among humans. There are millions who have trained as I have. Some are better than me. This caused visible shock among the delegates. leaned forward. Millions. There are millions of humans with your abilities. Millions who have trained seriously, yes, confirmed. Billions have some training. The martial arts are part of human culture. Children begin learning basic techniques almost as soon as they can walk. What exactly are these martial arts? High Counselor asked. Explain them to us. Lieutenant stepped forward to stand beside her captain. Martial arts are systematic methods of combat using the human body as the primary weapon. Different cultures develop different styles over thousands of years. She began counting on her fingers. Taekwondo focuses on powerful kicks and precise strikes. Judo uses throws and locks to control opponents. Boxing trains the hands for speed and power. Wrestling teaches ground combat and holds. Thai uses knees and elbows as devastating weapons. Specializes in submissions and joint locks. There are hundreds more, added. Each style has strengths and weaknesses. Modern human soldiers like my team study multiple styles and combine the best techniques from each. We spend years perfecting these combinations. Tentacles twisted with confusion. But why? If you have weapons, why spend years training your bodies? It seems inefficient. Sergeant Hanminu answered. He was shorter than but more heavily muscled. His friendly face did not match the power in his frame. Because weapons can fail, weapons can be taken, weapons can be detected and removed, but our bodies are always with us. Our training cannot be confiscated. In any situation, no matter how hopeless it seems, a trained human always has options. Also, Corporal Sora added quietly, speed matters. When Captain saw the assassin, he did not need to draw a weapon. He did not need to aim. He did not need to activate anything. His response was immediate. The gap between seeing the threat and acting on it was nearly zero. She gestured to the guards standing along the walls. Your guards had to reach for their weapons, draw them, aim them, and fire. Each step takes time. Captain used that time to cross the room and neutralize the threat. By the time your guards finished their first step, the fight was already over. Scales shifted to darker colors. This is what concerns us, Corporal. You speak of these things so casually, as if moving faster than trained soldiers and breaking limbs with your bare hands is normal. For us, it is normal, Sora replied simply. We have spent our lives preparing for moments like that one. When the moment came, we did not need to think. Our bodies knew what to do. High Counselor raised one of his arms for silence. I have a question for Captain. When you moved to intercept the assassin, what were you thinking? What was in your mind? Considered the question carefully. Nothing, High Counselor. Nothing. My training takes over in combat situations. Conscious thought is too slow. By the time I think about an action, the moment has already passed. Instead, I have trained my body to react automatically to threats. When I saw the assassin, my legs were already moving before my brain fully processed what I was seeing. When I reached him, my hands knew exactly what to do without being told. His mandibles clicked slowly. You are describing something like the instincts of a predator. Yes, agreed. Exactly like that. Humans were prey animals once. We were hunted by faster, stronger creatures, but we survived and eventually we became predators ourselves. That predator instinct is still inside us. Our training wakes it up and gives it direction. The chamber fell silent. The delegates looked at each other with expressions of growing understanding and growing fear. Ambassador Park stepped forward again. High Counselor, I want to be clear about something. Humans are not a threat to this council. We joined because we want peace and cooperation. Captain and his team are here to protect, not to attack. They saved your life. That is what they are meant to do. I do not doubt their good intentions, said slowly, but I am beginning to understand why you bring no weapons to these meetings. Tilted her head. Oh, please explain. Stood his tall form rising above the table. You bring no weapons because you want us to see you as peaceful. You want us to underestimate you. You want us to believe that humans are soft and harmless, but you are not harmless at all. You are extremely dangerous. You simply choose to hide that danger until it is needed. Smiled, that is partially correct, High Counselor, but there is another reason. Which is, weapons make others nervous. If my guards carried plasma rifles and kinetic blades, other species would see them as threats. There would be tension, suspicion, perhaps even conflict. She gestured to her team. But unarmed guards seem harmless. They allow others to relax. They encourage peaceful dialogue. Her smile grew slightly wider. The fact that my unarmed guards are actually more dangerous than any armed guard in this council is something we prefer to keep quiet. It makes the peace easier to maintain. Stared at her for a long moment. Then, surprising everyone, he made a sound that the translators identified as laughter. Ambassador Park, you are a very clever species, very clever indeed. Thank you, High Counselor. The inquiry continued for several more hours. The delegates asked many more questions about human combat capabilities, training methods, and physical limits. By the end, they had a much better understanding of what humans were capable of. They were not entirely comforted by this knowledge. As the session closed, approached Ambassador Park. The moved carefully, keeping distance between himself and the human guards. Ambassador, I owe you an apology. I mocked your security arrangements. I was foolish. Inclined her head gracefully. No apology is needed, Ambassador. You did not know. No, I did not. Looked at Captain with something like respect in his reptilian eyes. But now I do, and I think I speak for many species when I say that we will never underestimate humans again. Said nothing. He simply stood there calm and still, like a weapon waiting to be used. That silence said more than any words could. Despite the inquiry, despite the explanations, many species still doubted what they had heard. The ambassador argued that the assassination attempt had happened too fast to be properly observed. The suggested that Captain had simply been lucky. Others whispered that humans had secret technology hidden in their bodies, implants or drugs that gave them unnatural abilities. Ambassador Park grew tired of the doubts. She went a High Counselor with a proposal. A demonstration, she said. Controlled conditions, no tricks, no luck, just pure combat ability. Let the Council see for themselves what human training can do. Agreed immediately. He was curious too. The demonstration was arranged in the Council's training arena. This was a large circular space where various species practiced combat techniques and tested new weapons. Today, it would serve as a proving ground for human capabilities. Hundreds of delegates filled the observation galleries. Screens projected the arena floor to even more viewers across the station. Every species wanted to see this. The rumors had spread far and wide, and everyone wanted to know the truth. Sergeant Han Minyu stood in the center of the arena. He was not the largest member of the human team, not the fastest, not the most experienced. He was chosen specifically because he was the most average. If Minyu could impress the Council, it would prove that human abilities were not limited to exceptional individuals. Minyu wore simple training clothes, loose black pants and a sleeveless shirt that showed his muscled arms. He carried nothing. He wore no armor. He was barefoot on the arena floor. Across from him stood 3 warriors. They were widely considered one of the best warrior species in the galaxy. Their reptilian bodies were covered in natural armor scales. Their 4 arms gave them advantages in close combat. Their reflexes were sharp, their training excellent. These 3 were veterans of the border wars, elite soldiers with decades of experience. Each held a training neural disruptor, set to stun rather than kill. Even so, a hit would drop Minyu instantly. The wore light armor and moved with the confidence of predators about to catch easy prey. High Counselor spoke from the observation platform. The rules are simple. This is a combat simulation. The warriors will attempt to subdue the human. The human will attempt to evade or disable them. The match ends when one side is unable to continue. Leaned forward in his seat. Despite his newfound respect for humans, part of him still wanted to see one fail. 3 against 1, with weapons against none, those were odds no being could overcome. "Are both sides ready?" asked. The warriors hissed in affirmation. Minyu simply nodded. "Begin." They attacked as one, moving with practiced coordination. They had fought together for years and worked as a seamless unit. One approached from the left, one from the right, one straight ahead. Their neural disruptors hummed with power. They expected Minyu to run or dodge. They expected fear or desperation. What they got was a smile. Minyu moved. The central fired first. His disruptor shot toward Minyu's chest, a beam of stunning energy that had dropped thousands of opponents over the years. But Minyu was no longer where the beam went. He had shifted sideways, a movement so fast that it barely seemed possible. In the same instant, Minyu closed the distance to the central warrior. His fist drove into this armored chest with a sound like a hammer hitting stone. The armor cracked. The warrior staggered backward, eyes wide with shock and pain. Before he could fall, Minyu spun. His leg swept through the air in a perfect arc, his heel connecting with the second warrior's weapon arm. The neural disruptor flew away, and the arm hung limp, the joint dislocated by the impact. The third warrior tried to adjust, tried to bring his weapon to bear on this impossibly fast human. But Minyu was already there, inside the warrior's guard, too close for the disruptor to be useful. Minyu's elbow drove upward, striking this jaw. The warrior's head snapped back and he crumpled to the ground. 2 warriors were down. The third, the one with the cracked armor, raised his weapon with trembling hands. Minyu moved again. He grabbed the warrior's weapon arm, twisted, and used his own momentum against him. The warrior flipped through the air and landed hard on his back. Minyu followed him down, his knee pressing against the warrior's throat, applying just enough pressure to immobilize without killing. Silence filled the arena. The second warrior, the one with the dislocated arm, tried to rise. Minyu looked at him calmly. "Stay down," he said quietly. "I do not want to hurt you more." The warrior stayed down. 2.8 seconds. The official timer recorded the entire fight at 2.8 seconds. In the observation galleries, no one moved. No one spoke. Several species had stopped breathing. What they had just witnessed broke everything they thought they knew about combat. High Counselor finally found his voice. "Those warriors are veterans. They have fought in wars. They have killed hundreds of enemies." Minyu rose from the fallen. He was not even breathing hard. "Yes, High Counselor, they fought well." "They did not fight at all," said. "They barely moved before you disabled them." "They moved," Minyu replied. "But they depended on their weapons. When I removed that advantage, they had nothing left to fall back on." He walked to where the dislocated arm warrior sat clutching his injury. Minyu knelt beside him and with quick, precise movements, popped the joint back into place. The warrior hissed in pain, then stared at his arm in amazement as mobility returned. "Your technique was good," Minyu told him, "but you relied too much on the disruptor. When it was gone, your mind froze. You did not know what to do. That hesitation is what defeated you, not my strength." The warrior looked at Minyu with an expression that mixed pain, humiliation, and reluctant respect. "How do we fight against beings like you?" Minyu considered the question seriously. "You cannot. Not as you are now. Human martial arts took thousands of years to develop. You cannot learn them in a lifetime. Your bodies are strong, but they are not built for the techniques we use. Our bones, our joints, our muscles, they all work together in ways that were shaped by evolution and refined by training." He stood and faced the observation platform. "This is why human diplomatic guards carry no weapons. Not because we are foolish or arrogant, because weapons would only slow us down. In close combat, every fraction of a second matters. The time it takes to draw and aim a weapon is time we can use to end a fight before it truly begins. Ambassador Park stood in the observation gallery, her expression calm and proud. High Counselor, you asked for proof. You now have it. My guards are not ordinary soldiers carrying unusual weapons. They are the weapons. Their bodies have been trained to do what you just witnessed, and they can do it anywhere, anytime, without any external tools. Spoke up, his voice shaky. But this was 3 against 1. 3 veteran warriors against a single human, and he defeated them in less than 3 seconds. Yes, said simply. What happens when you face 10 opponents, 20, 100? Lieutenant answered from her position beside the ambassador. Captain once fought 17 armed opponents during a rescue mission on the colony world New Sol. The fight lasted 43 seconds. All 17 opponents were neutralized. Captain suffered no significant injuries. The silence that followed was so complete that you could hear the ventilation systems humming in the walls. His tentacles moved slowly, forming patterns of deep thought. Ambassador Park, I must ask a direct question. Are humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy? Consider the question carefully before answering. We do not know, Ambassador. The galaxy is vast and there may be species we have not yet met. But I can tell you this. On our home planet, humans rose to dominance despite being physically weaker than many animals. We did this through intelligence, cooperation, and the development of combat techniques that turned our weaknesses into strengths. That process took millions of years. She looked around the observation gallery, meeting the eyes of every delegate present. We do not seek conflict. We truly want peace, but we will never be prey. We will never be victims. If threatened, we will respond with everything our species has learned over its long, violent history. And as you have just seen, we have learned quite a lot. High Counselor stepped to the edge of the observation platform. Ambassador Park, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I want to formally thank humanity for this demonstration. It has been educational. You are welcome, High Counselor. Paused, then added something more. I also want to say that I am very glad humanity chose to join our council as friends rather than enemies. I suspect that would have been a very different experience. Smiled, and there was warmth in that smile, but also something else. Something ancient and patient and very, very dangerous. Yes, High Counselor, she said, it would have been. Down in the arena, Minyu helped the fallen warriors to their feet. He treated them with respect and even offered advice on their fighting techniques. They listened carefully. They had been humbled, but they were smart enough to learn from the experience. And in observation galleries across the station, hundreds of species watched and recorded and remembered. The galaxy had learned something important today. Humans were not the soft, harmless creatures they appeared to be. They were predators wearing the faces of prey. And they carried no weapons because they did not need them. 6 months had passed since the demonstration. The galaxy had changed. The story of the unarmed human guard spread through every trade route, every diplomatic channel, every military academy. It was told in bars on distant planets and discussed in the highest levels of government. The recording of Sergeant Minyu defeating 3 warriors in 2.8 seconds became one of the most watched videos in galactic history. Other species began requesting human security consultants. They wanted to learn human fighting techniques. They asked for training programs. Even the proud, still embarrassed by their warriors' defeat, quietly sent requests for information about human martial arts. The answers they received were discouraging. Human combat techniques required human bodies. The bone density, the muscle structure, the joint flexibility, the reaction speed, everything worked together in ways that could not be replicated. A could practice human kicks for 1,000 years and never achieve what a trained human could do in seconds. Their legs simply did not work the same way. More than that, the training took decades to master. Human martial artists began learning as small children. They spent years building foundations before they could perform advanced techniques. There were no shortcuts. There were no quick solutions. Humanity's combat abilities, the Council slowly realized, were not a technology that could be stolen or. They were the result of millions of years of evolution combined with thousands of years of cultural development. They were as unique to humans as crystal forms were to the or telepathy was to the. This realization changed how the galaxy viewed humanity. In the Galactic Council chamber, the human delegation was no longer mocked. When Ambassador Park entered, other delegates greeted her with careful respect. When Captain and his team took their positions, no one made jokes about their empty hands. Instead, other species watched them with the wary attention that prey animals give to predators who are choosing not to hunt. High Counselor requested a private meeting with Ambassador Park. They met in his personal quarters, a space filled with artifacts from his home world. The leader moved slowly, his age showing in ways it had not before. Nearly being assassinated had affected him more than he admitted publicly. Ambassador Park, he began, I wanted to speak with you personally, away from the council chambers, away from the politics. Of course, High Counselor, what troubles you? Settled into his resting frame, his compound eyes reflecting the soft lighting. When your captain saved my life, I felt something I had not felt in many years. Fear. Not of the assassin. I was prepared to die if necessary. No, I felt fear of your captain. Remained silent, listening. In that moment, watching him move, watching him break the assassin's arm as easily as I might break a thin branch, I understood something. Humans are not what we thought you were. You are something else entirely, something we have never encountered before. What do you think we are, High Counselor? His mandibles clicked slowly as he considered his words. Every species in the Council developed along similar paths. We grew on our planets. We faced dangers. We developed tools to overcome those dangers. Eventually, we developed weapons. Those weapons became extensions of ourselves. We cannot imagine combat without them. He paused. But humans developed differently. You made weapons, yes, but you also made yourselves into weapons. You did not just create tools for fighting. You turned fighting into an art form. You spent thousands of years perfecting ways to kill with nothing but your bodies. And then you passed that knowledge down through generations, refining it, improving it, making it part of who you are. That is accurate, acknowledged. The question that haunts me, Ambassador, is why? Why did humans develop this way? What was on your planet that forced you to become living weapons? Considered the question carefully. It was a question humans had asked themselves many times. Everything, she finally answered. Everything on our planet tried to kill us. Predators hunted us. Weather destroyed our shelters. Disease swept through our populations. Other humans attacked us for resources, for territory, for reasons we no longer remember. She looked at with eyes that held thousands of years of accumulated survival wisdom. We were not the strongest. We were not the fastest. We had no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no venom. We had only our minds and our bodies, so we learned to use them. We learned to fight when fighting was necessary. We learned to survive when survival seemed impossible. You make it sound like endless war. It was, for most of our history it was. Humans fought everything. Our planet, other animals, each other. We fought until fighting became as natural as breathing. And then when we finally achieved peace among ourselves, we did not forget what we had learned. We kept training. We kept practicing. Because somewhere in our souls we remembered that peace never lasts forever. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had truly been bothering him. Ambassador, are humans dangerous to the Council? Met his compound eyes without flinching. That depends entirely on the Council, High Counselor. Explain. Humanity wants peace. We genuinely do. We joined this council because we believe in cooperation, in shared growth, in mutual benefit. We have had enough war. We have had enough death. We want something better for our children and their children." She leaned forward slightly. "But we will never be victims. We will never be prey. If any species threatens us, if any power moves against us with hostile intent, we will respond. And as you have seen, our response will be devastating. Even without your advanced weapons, even with just your bodies. Yes, because weapons can be taken away, ships can be destroyed, technology can fail, but human beings trained and determined are almost impossible to stop. We will fight in ways your species cannot imagine. We will find angles of attack you have never considered. We will turn your strengths into weaknesses and your weapons into liabilities. This is what our history has taught us. This is what we are." Softened her voice. "However, we do not want this. We do not seek conflict. Captain saved your life not because he wanted to fight, but because he wanted to protect. That is what our guards are for. Protection, not aggression." Considered her words for a long time. Finally, he made a sound that the translators identified as a sigh. "You are a terrifying species, Ambassador Park, but I believe you are sincere. You truly do want peace." "We do." "Then I will tell you something in confidence. After the demonstration, several species approached me privately. They suggested that humanity should be contained. Some wanted to limit your expansion. Others wanted to ban human martial arts as weapons of mass destruction. A few even suggested preemptive military action while humans were still few in number." His expression did not change, but her eyes hardened slightly. "And what did you tell them?" "I told them they were fools," leaned forward. "I told them that attacking humans would be the worst mistake in galactic history, that even if they succeeded in destroying your ships and planets, they would never destroy your people, that humans would fight with rocks and sticks if necessary, that they would never stop fighting until either they won or they were extinct, and that extinction was very, very unlikely. You understand us well, High Counselor." "I understand survival," replied. "My species survived our own death world. We know what desperation creates. We know what endless struggle does to a people. And I recognize the look in your captain's eyes. It is the look of a being who has faced death so many times that death has become just another opponent to defeat." He stood, stretching his old joints. "Ambassador Park, I want you to know that you have an ally in me. Humanity has earned my respect. Your strength is obvious now, but more importantly, your restraint is obvious. You could have destroyed that assassin. Your captain could have killed the warriors in the demonstration. But you chose mercy. That tells me more about your species than any display of power." Stood as well. "Thank you, High Counselor. Your understanding means a great deal to us." "One last question." "Yes." His compound eyes focused on her with sharp intensity. "Why do your guards truly carry no weapons? Not the diplomatic answer, the real answer." Smiled. It was the first genuine smile had ever seen from her. "The real answer, High Counselor, is very simple. We want the galaxy to see us as we truly are, not as technology users, not as weapon carriers, but as ourselves. When other species look at my guards, they see what humanity really is: calm, patient, empty-handed, seemingly harmless." Her smile widened slightly, and there was something ancient in her eyes. "We want you to understand that when humans choose to be dangerous, we do not need to pick anything up. We simply stop choosing to be safe. That is the warning we offer. That is the promise we make." She bowed slightly. "We come in peace. We truly do. But we want the galaxy to understand what happens if peace is broken. We carry no weapons because we want everyone to know that we do not need them. And we want everyone to think very carefully about what that means before they ever consider becoming our enemies." Nodded slowly. "Message received, Ambassador. Message very clearly received." As Ambassador Park left the High Counselor's quarters, her 4 guards fell into step behind her. Captain, Lieutenant, Sergeant Han Minyu, and Corporal Sara. Four humans in simple black clothes, carrying nothing, armed with nothing but themselves. Other species moved out of their way as they walked. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humans were friends to those who treated them with respect. They were allies to those who needed protection. They were partners to those who sought cooperation. But they were never, ever prey. And their empty hands were the most honest warning the galaxy had ever received. The story of the unarmed human guards passed into legend. It was taught in military academies across the galaxy. It was told to children at bedtime. It became a universal symbol of human nature, peaceful by choice, dangerous by capability, and always, always ready for whatever the universe might bring. And on the human colony worlds, children continued to learn martial arts as they had for thousands of years. They practiced kicks and punches and throws and locks. They trained their bodies and sharpened their reflexes. They learned the lessons of their ancestors. Because humans never forgot that peace was precious, and that the best way to protect something precious was to be capable of defending it with everything you had, even if everything you had was just yourself.